it's Rob. It's time for another member talk, and we are bringing you Lee Mckinstry today. She is a student out at Lake Washington Tech. She's in the Funeral Service Education Department. Lee, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you today, Rob?
Good. And now, are you in? Let's start out. You are a student at Lake Washington.
Yep.
What year? When do you plan to graduate?
I'm in my second year, so I believe my graduation is expected in March.
Okay. And where are you at now? Are you at home? Is that right?
Yeah, I'm at home. I live in Port Townsend. I work at Cossack Funeral Home out here, the only funeral home in Jefferson County. And I'm interning here, doing my state apprenticeships, both embalming
Nice.
and funeral directing.
Nice. Well, yeah. Normally, this isn't the background you see when we do these. I'm actually from getting you from my home as well. So hopefully, we'll get through this without the kids interrupting and all that stuff. But if they do, I apologize ahead of time.
Yeah, you
So,
might see
Lee,
my cat.
Lee, I wanted to really talk with you about being a student in today's society, being a student in today's society. I was a student. All of our licensees were students at one time. I was a student a long time ago, back in the 90s, and I know things have changed dramatically since then. So I wanted to kind of get a perspective of what it's like to be a funeral service education student in not only 2020, but in a pandemic year of 2020. I'm sure it's a lot different than what you anticipated when you went into this program.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I started this program, of course, none of us knew that 2020 was going to be a pandemic. But I knew that there was going to be a little bit of like online, sort of like a hybrid situation with some online classes. I wasn't expecting it to go fully online last quarter. It's been a struggle, especially because it's such a hands-on field that not being able to get into the lab has been challenging. So we've had to do a little arranging, but that's what funeral directors are good at, right? Arranging, and
Yeah, yeah.
it's teaching us a lot of flexibility, which is good.
And honestly, that is something that needs to be taught is flexibility. A lot of times we get so rigid and it's got to be this way. It's got to be, this is the way it's going to be. And
Yeah.
so it's really giving you some great opportunity to think outside the box, so to speak, and come up with some ideas of how to do this.
Yeah, and not just in school, but also in like actually getting into the field and doing my internship. I've just been interning for since July, so about 4 months now,
Okay.
and starting a new job in the middle of a pandemic, especially one that's so public faced and so oftentimes very intimate with other people, it's very strange. I haven't actually gotten the chance to do like a church service yet because there aren't church services happening. We've been really fortunate that the weather's been beautiful out here all summer, so we've been doing a lot of graveside services. But now, as the winter is coming and weather's sort of turning, we're having to get really creative, with
Yeah.
how we sort of make things meaningful with people in the midst of social distancing.
Well, yeah, that's interesting because not having church services, not or other types of services, it's going to take a little bit before you actually get that first one under your belt and kind of realize how to do it.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective. I feel like I'm kind of learning a lot of things backwards, but it'll be really interesting to see how that sort of influences my creativity and flexibility in arrangement planning going into the future. Um, yeah, it's definitely a challenge, but kind of a fun one.
So you are completely online, is that right?
I was last quarter,
Okay.
yes. The pandemic hit, it shut our school down um, just before the end of the quarter before last. So I didn't actually finish up my embalming lab. Had to take my finals online. That was, and then the quarter after that was all online. We were supposed to have our restorative art one sort of lab and theory, I guess, at the same time, but instead they made it all theory. And now this quarter for restorative art 2, we're doing all lab.
Okay.
So it's been kind of a strange juggling of curriculum, but they're making it work, and we're getting through it as best we can.
And who's your instructors? Is it Jenny? You got Jenny and Liz? Or?
I have Liz for my 2 lab classes. So I have her for embalming and restorative art, and then Jenny has my 2 online classes. Right
Okay.
now, that's merchandising and management and funeral service options. So we're
Yeah.
focusing a lot on cremation right now, but I'm really excited to start talking. We're going to get certified as crematory operators, and then hopefully talking more about alkaline hydrolysis and natural organic reduction as well.
Yeah. Two big topics coming up. Well, are here now. So it'll be.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you about that. I know Recompose they said November was their opening.
Uh-huh.
Have you heard anything about how they're doing?
Well, no, not in particular. Well, I've heard that they're moving forward. I know that there's another company out called Return Home as well that's also offering natural organic reduction. So to me, it sounds like it's more of a race to who's going to open first and go from there. But it's interesting to sit back and watch for sure. I think it's
Yeah,
a great
definitely.
opportunity for a lot of people, and certainly sounds like it's something that people are looking to have.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have had one person who I was talking pre-arrangement stuff with who was very interested in the possibility of it, and kind of the biggest obstacle was that they live out here and it's just in Seattle right now. So I think as we see things sort of expand, I think it's going to be a really great option for people.
Sounds like it's going to be pretty big financial commitment if you're going to, move the facility to somewhere other than Seattle. From what I'm hearing from the two
Yeah,
different people putting it together, but it's not doable. It's certainly something that could happen and could really take off. So it'll be fun to sit back and watch what happens over the next few months and years as it continues to grow. So what's
absolutely. I'm very excited to watch how it's going to play out.
absolutely what's the outlook for you? You're interning now. You're going to finish up school. How long is your internship? You've got
Yep.
2 more years on it still, or a year? Where are you at with that?
Yeah, so the funeral directing one is just a year, so I've got 8 more months of that, and then I'm doing my embalming one concurrently, which is 2 years. So I've got a year and 8 months, and that's really the interesting one because embalming rates are going down in Washington. So just trying to get enough practical experience to meet that intern license requirement. Um, we're like 90 some percent cremation here, so
Getting pretty
um,
close, yeah.
yeah, it's really interesting. Have had a couple embalmings, but most of the time people are real into cremation, and I imagine once it becomes more available into aquamation and natural organic reduction as well. Um, so I'm going for that dual licensure. I'd like to be dually licensed, both funeral director and embalmer, but looking at the future for how practical embalming skills are going to be in Washington, can't really say at this
Hard
point.
to say, yeah. No, I'd advise you to go ahead and do both for sure. I mean, you never know where you're going to end up.
It's true.
You could end up in a state that's totally opposite. Could be 80% burial and with embalming and 20%. I mean, it just, who knows where you end up. So yeah, definitely get both. It's well worth it. Whether you practice embalming or not, certainly something that it's good to have that skill to
Yeah,
be able to do that, and the license to be able to do that. Certainly, it makes you more marketable for sure. Of course, it
absolutely.
depends too, like you say, on what you want to do. Some folks want to just stay specialized and be in large funeral homes that they only embalm or they only funeral direct. Some people want to do all, so it gives you plenty of options.
That's true. Yeah, I like keeping my options open. I think embalming's really interesting. I really love, the families that I've been able to work with in terms of our embalmings. It's been really just really touching and really meaningful to be able to, provide that closure for them. And that's what I'm in it for, is the families, helping families and helping people to heal. And I think that for some people it can be a really, really important step. So I want to be at the level that I need to be at to really provide that for folks.
Good. So what was it that got you interested in doing this? What was it that got you interested in funeral service?
Oh gosh, I don't know. People always ask me that, but I can't pinpoint it down to one thing. I think a lot of us were like that weird kid in high school that, I've always been fascinated by death rituals and how people make meaning out of something that's so painful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I didn't really think that I could do it as a career. I wasn't really sure, trying to find my way. I'm almost 30 now and just really like settling into a career that I think is really like has a lot of legs to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been really interesting sort of figuring out, I'm a helper for sure. I love helping people. I love people. I love talking to people, meeting people. Um, I think it's just kind of a natural fit of being really interested in science and anatomy, and then also just really empathetic and compassionate, and trying to meld those two into kind of a unique field
Yeah.
of, if you've got that dual licensure going of being really, scientific on one side. I thought about going medical for a while, but didn't quite fit. So, you have that almost medical side of things, and then thought about being a counselor for a while too, or a psychiatrist or psychologist. And again, that didn't really quite fit. So it's almost this middle ground of almost a lot of different things. And it's turned out to be a really great fit for me. I get a lot of compliments from families about my demeanor with them, and, patience, and helping and trying to make it as easy as possible. And it just feels like a really good fit. It feels really good to hear that from folks.
Yeah. Well, if I could give you any advice
Please.
as an old funeral, well, I shouldn't say old because I don't think I'm that old, but some think I am. But as an old funeral director, I've been doing this for 30 years. Learn as much as you can and don't stop learning. There are so many opportunities outside once you get out of school. There's so many opportunities to continue to learn. Just go to conventions, go to the district meetings, continue to learn what you can, because as you see, I mean, 5 years ago we didn't have any of the things that we have today, and now we're, it's online arrangements, and it's natural organic reduction, and it's, all these different things that 5 years ago we didn't have. I mean, it's changing so rapidly. So yeah, stay involved as much as possible and continue to grow in it. I think you'll do great with it.
Yeah, that's something that I really like about it, is it's so fast paced and changing all the time. A lot of people outside of the field just kind of look at it and they're like, oh, funerals, they've just always been the same. Like, how much can it change? But it's so exciting to be a part of something that's just, especially out here, Washington, Oregon, where things are changing. And we see a lot of folks who are really open to that change and helping to drive it along, that I'm floored by it, and I really can't wait to be able to do continuing education stuff and sort of adapt my learning and education to what's most helpful and interesting to me to become the best professional I can.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me ask you this. We're going to kind of wrap up here, but how can we get a hold of, or get in touch with you? Do you have an email address that you can share with us?
I do, yeah. You can reach me at just my funeral home's address. We just share one. It's Kosek FH, KOSEC FH for funeral home, at olypen.com, like Olympic Peninsula. So OLYPEN.com.
Okay, awesome. We'll put that at the bottom of the screen so we can, if people want to reach out and talk with you, you certainly can.
Great.
Well, Lee, it's been great to get to know you. It's been great to have you on here. I appreciate you coming on, and love to kind of walk with you a little bit more too, and maybe do this again as your school kind of starts wrapping up, see how things changed and kind of how that program worked for you. So we'd love to get you back on here.
Great.
All right. Well, thanks again. And again, as always, if you'd like to join us, reach out at any time at thewsfda@gmail.com. So until next time, thanks, Lee. See you next time.
Thanks, Rob.